Hello everyone, I'm DonTheCrown, and today I want to make a quick response video to a Wudijo video here where he's talking about the real reason why Barbarians are the most broken class in Diablo 4. That's what the title of the video is. I'll link it in the description below. And basically in this video he talks about how Challenging Shout is absolutely broken because basically it gives you increasingly more damage reduction as you level up the skill. And there's a lot of ways to level up the skill, as we'll talk about in a second here. And then on top of that, with this bold chieftain's aspect, you can basically reduce the cooldown of the skill by 12 seconds. It already has a 25-second total cooldown, and so that would bring it down to a 13-second cooldown. And you can very easily make the shout last 10 seconds. So all you need is like a smidgen of cooldown reduction, and you basically have 100% uptime. And according to Daniel Briggs, who works on Diablo, you can have 5 points from your skill tree, and then you have another 6 points from skill point affixes, another 3 from skill category. This is like to all defensive skills, for example, and then plus 4 from the extremely rare, like Shaco, Harlequin's Crest, I think is what it's called in Diablo 4. And so that's going to give you a total of an additional plus 13 levels to your skill, so a total of level 18 skills, which definitely are going to be pretty broken. Now, whether or not Challenging Shout or some of these other skills are going to actually have that 6 points of affix here, I'm not really sure. Can't really remember per se if I saw Challenging Shout as something that you could level up on gear at like below level 25. Maybe it's something for later as well. Who knows? However, there's a couple of things that Woody kind of missed, and there's some other stuff that he didn't necessarily talk about too much, and we kind of got into the math of this. So on the right hand side over here, we can see the math for Challenging Shout. Basically, as it levels up, it always gains 5 points of damage reduction, which makes it really, really ridiculous. Even if you didn't level this up at all, at level 5, you're going to be getting 60% damage reduction. If you can keep that up full time, that would be basically adding 150% more health to your character, which is incredibly powerful. A very, very powerful option. So this is something that you're probably going to want to have just period if it's at that point. Now, once you get all the way to level 13, which is not 18, the cap. So once you get to 13, the damage reduction becomes 100%, so you wouldn't take any damage. Now, the only thing that could potentially happen here is that if Blizzard makes it so that there's some sort of hard cap, like you can't level it past like level 10 or something, but even then, leveling something up that high is still incredibly powerful for damage mitigation. This is like the single strongest source of damage mitigation you can get once you leveled it up. However, there are some other incredibly powerful sources of this damage immunity or other things like that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Woody actually missed one important factor, and that is the thing that you can find in your Paragon board, which is the power of your shout skills. Increase the power of your shout skills by 35%. So this will take this number here, times it by 35, and you can see here at level 8, not level 13, you go into permanent immunity mode, which is definitely ridiculous because you can for sure, according to Daniel Briggs, get at least 3 from the category affix. So all you would need is plus 3 to defensive skills. Don't even need anything. I don't even need any special uniques. Don't need any particular Challenging Shout specific stuff. All you need is this Paragon power, which we don't even know if it is in the game or not, or how it will affect it per se. But if it works the way it seemingly should work, it'll just make you immune to damage, just period, as a barbarian. And that's really ridiculous. So hopefully what they do is they like cap this DR at like 60% for everything, and then like make it so that it increases your duration with levels or something of that type, because otherwise, especially a really, really hard content, the level of your Challenging Shout is really going to determine kind of the type of content you can do. Like being at like a level like 7 Challenging Shout here, you're still taking 5% of the damage. even if it's capped at 90%, you're going to want to push it all the way to the cap on basically every end game farming build, just so you take less damage. It just makes sense. And so hopefully they look at this a little bit and adjust it. I do agree this is a little bit overpowered, but this is not the only skill that gets a little bit ridiculous with levels. Next up, we have Dark Shroud. If you're not familiar with what Dark Shroud does, it basically is a skill that has a 20-second cooldown that pops out 5 little shadows around you, and you get damage reduction based off the number of shadows you have. Every time you take a direct damage hit, it will remove one of the shadows and lower your overall damage reduction, and so it kind of scales down as you get hit. At level 5, the base damage reduction is 11.2, which means with 5 shrouds, you're going to have 56% damage reduction, which is basically an effective 127% more effective health, which is incredibly strong. It's basically like having a permanent challenging shout on your character here at level 4 all the time as a rogue. The really powerful thing here is that it does not have a duration. And so if you want to pop this before going into a boss, you can start a boss fight with 5 shrouds around yourself and your cooldown off cooldown. So if you take a hit or two, you can just re-pop them right back up. And you have to remember that Rogue is a class that is very good at avoiding taking damage in the first place with fast movement. And so a good player who could solo a world boss probably could avoid a lot of damage here, and then any individual hits that they happen to get unlucky with, they aren't going to take a lot of damage. This especially goes crazy at level 16 here, where you're taking effectively 0 damage from the very first hit. You always have a 100% damage reduction to the first hit that you get once you have 5 shrouds at level 16, which is very strong. And even the second hit, you're going to have 80% damage reduction, which is very strong. This particular item though this particular skill has 2 affixes that does help it though. First off, we have the Umbrious aspect, which makes it so that lucky hit, critical strikes with marksman skills have up to a 50% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud shadow. So it's a quick way to activate more Dark Shrouds, and you can improve your lucky hit chance. And some skills like hit a whole bunch, so there's a high chance that you're going to just keep your Dark Shrouds up without even having to press the button. And then the second one here makes it so that you gain a free Dark Shroud every 3 seconds while standing still. Each Dark Shroud also grants an additional 4% increased damage reduction. And that 4% is really going to mess with our math above. Another thing to note is that there is like a melee Twisting Blades build that wants to basically face tank the boss, and it's just spamming Twisting Blades over and over again, reducing the cooldown of all of its skills, including Dark Shroud here. And you're always standing still, you hope to be at least in that particular build, and you have movement skills that allow you to move while still counting as standing still. So you could effectively take advantage of this and become very strong. With this particular legendary at level 5, the Dark Shroud is now providing 316% more effective health, which is about the equivalent of a level 8 challenging shout, which is very strong. Now that's only for the first hit. The second hit, obviously, you're going to be taking more damage. But once you get only up to level 11, the very first hit here, we're dividing by 0 because it has 100% damage reduction, which is pretty nuts. And then once you get all the way down here to level 18, which supposedly is the max level, not only the first hit will make you completely immune to damage, so will the second hit. So 2 hits, and then you could be restoring these shrouds with marksman crits, or just getting an extra free one every 3 seconds. Or if you get hit twice, you can just press your 20-second cooldown and completely refresh all 5 shadows. This is pretty ridiculous. This should probably also not scale this way. Maybe the bonus of this should be increased a little bit more baseline, and then make it so that the leveling up of the skill lowers the cooldown, as opposed to providing forever increasing more damage. Because if they ever add more sources of increased level, this will definitely become a problem, as Basically, everybody gets hit twice before they take any damage. Doesn't seem all that good. There's some other skills, though, that get a little bit crazy with levels. Cyclone Armor. Cyclone Armor is a Druid skill that basically provides you with non-physical damage reduction. And the baseline for this is 20%. Now, this is not something that you even need to activate. This is just if it is on your bar, you have 20% damage reduction. And that might not seem all that big of a deal, Don. It's non-physical, blah, blah, blah. Except for if you have Aspect of Cyclonic Force, it also provides physical damage reduction. In addition to that, it also provides itself to all nearby allies. This doesn't say party members. This is just allies. So Cyclone Armor will affect everybody at the world boss, or so I've heard. This is very, very, very strong. I think it also applies to like companions or necroskeletons. I'm not 100% positive about that, but that is very strong. And so once you get up to like level 18 or even at level 5, you're giving everybody in your party 36% more effective health, which basically makes it for grouping almost a no-brainer. This is something you definitely want to pick up if you're trying to push levels and things are difficult to do. But in general, Druid itself is just kind of ridiculous for reducing the damage of enemies and is practically going to be mandatory for endgame content. First off, you have Debilitating Roar. Now, I want to note that the Druid skills all have different wording for how they're making enemies do less damage, so they might have weird multipliers, but I'm going to assume that it's all just multiplicative damage reduction against what they're going to do to your team. So Debilitating Roar reduces nearby enemies' damage dealt by 50%. And then you have Hurricane, which makes enemies hit by the hurricane deal less damage. And then Pulverize makes enemies do reduce damage by 20%. And so if you're stacking these three things up, enemies are doing 68% less damage to your party. And then if you have level 5 Cyclone Armor on, they're doing 77% less damage. Now, I'm not sure how this works at the world boss, but if this applies, then it basically makes it so that the world boss doesn't hit very hard at all. All you need is just one support style Druid who is just keeping these debuffs up, and the world boss is hitting like a baby, which is probably a problem. Also, if you take it up to a level 18 Cyclone Armor, they're going to be doing 84% less damage. So that's just, they're just doing 16% of their damage. Oh, and this might work in PvP as well. So imagine trying to fight a group of people and a Druid is debuffing you, so you're only doing 16% of your damage. Good luck. Definitely good luck. So yeah, those are definitely a few problems with damage reduction. And there's two other skills that I want to talk about that become a problem with just cooldown and downtime, and they are Blood Mist and Flame Shield. Blood Mist is a Necromancer skill that it already has quite a bit of a hot topic on it because there's a affix that makes it really good, and that affix is called the Aspect of Explosive Mist. This makes it so Blood Mist triggers corpse explosion on surrounding corpses. When it detonates a corpse, its cooldown is reduced by anywhere from 0.5 to 1.5. And these can also be on amulets, increase its effectiveness by 50%, or weapons, or two-handed weapons, increase this all the way up to 3 seconds. But I'm going to assume that you're just putting this on like a glove or something like that. And as you can see here at level 1, we have a cooldown of 20 seconds with a downtime of 17 seconds. And I would have to pop 12 corpses if I had a maxed roll one of these in order to bring the downtime to 0. Now, Blood Mist itself does have a little modifier that makes it so that you generate a corpse a second. It has a 3-second duration, so I'm assuming that's 3 corpses. So you already have 3 out of the 12 corpses you need. And if you're killing anything else, it's going to be really, really easy. At level 5, you only need to pop 6 additional corpses besides the ones you already generate. And then by the time you make it to level 14, you will always and forever have Blood Mist available to be used the moment that it is done channeling because you will generate 3 corpses and it only has enough downtime that you only have to pop 3, right? Is a 4-second downtime and you pop 3 corpses at 1.5, you lose 4.5 seconds and you're right back in the blood mist. So you could basically just automate this and be completely immune to damage and completely fine, and that is definitely a problem. Last one I want to talk about is Flame Shield. Flame Shield is a, oh yeah, one last thing with the Blood Mist. So Blood Mist makes you immune to damage and immune to crowd control and can be used in crowd control. They should probably just make it so that it's a damage reduction as opposed to a damage immunity, and that would probably fix a lot of these problems. I'm not really looking forward to fighting in PvP somebody who's permanently immune in Blood Mist. That's just not very fun to me. It's not a lot of counter play to that, because even if you happen to crowd control them with like a stomp or something as they get out of their blood mist and have some sort of downtime, they can just activate their blood mist again when it comes off cooldown. It doesn't actually like lock them down at all. Same thing with Flame Shield. Flame Shield gives you complete immunity to damage, complete immunity to crowd control, and can be used in crowd control. And doesn't prevent you from casting spells or doing anything. You're just able to keep moving around, and in fact you move faster with one of the Flame Shield modifiers on it. And at level 18 you have a total downtime of 14.6 seconds, which kind of seems like, oh, you know, that's fine, Don. What's the issue with that? Well, Sorcs also have a thing that you might have seen a video about called Ice Blades. It is a unkillable summon that has a 12-second cooldown. It runs around and tries to stab things that are vulnerable, and when it stabs things that are vulnerable, it reduces its cooldown by 1 second each time. This modifier here makes it so that 50% of that cooldown reduction is also applied to your other skills, and the enchantment effect of Ice Blades makes it so that when you use 20 seconds of any cooldown, you summon a blade. And so if you're using a high cooldown build, Ice Blades are just floating around everywhere, hitting stuff and reducing the cooldowns of all your cooldowns. I ran in Annika's with just a weapon and did just fine, even though some of the elites were like resetting on me, which is a beta bug. And so this Flame Shield definitely could be a big problem. Big problem. The ability to have complete immunity to crowd control, the complete immunity to damage, and the ability to continue to pilot your character normally, all big problems, I think. I'm not really sure how to fix Flame Shield per se. Maybe make it so that it's just DR as well, as opposed to complete immunity, but it is, you know, stuff that I hope to see balanced. Now, honestly, I'm not really expecting to see anything super duper balanced in preseason. I think that in preseason, we're going to see a lot of craziness, a lot of things that are absolutely ridiculous. And then hopefully for season 1, which is probably going to be somewhere like 2 to 6 weeks out. It's probably be 6 weeks based off the data mine. But it's going to be, that's when they're going to do all the balancing. So expect to see some crazy builds, expect to see some crazy stuff. Last thing we'll talk about is gems. Now I'm going to do a gems video. I'm like 80% of the way done editing it, but we found some stuff in the data mine that has implied that you're going to be able to get up to level 8 gems at the very end game. And this is going to make sapphires incredibly ridiculously strong. You know what sapphires do? They basically make it so that your damage reduction while fortified is increased. If you don't understand what fortified or anything is, we're going to do a video about fortification as well. Subscribe if you want to see that kind of stuff. But we're basically getting more and more DR. At 1 gem, you get 5 of them in your armor. You're going to be getting 14% more damage reduction than if you didn't have the gem at all. Whereas the second one increases this number by 18% up to 32. And then it's going up by 26%, and it goes up by 38%, and then this last one I believe is 61% more effective health compared to not having any gems, which is going to make this incredibly strong. To give you an idea, at like 1,000 base health, if you already have 50% DR from some other source, without gems, you'd be sitting about 2,000 effective health. However, if you're fortified with, this is assuming you're fortified as well, if you're fortified with 5 gems, you now have 5,700 effective health, which is a pretty big deal. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think that there's going to be some interesting options for damage reduction from gearing. I think there's going to be a little bit of a grind in the end game. There's definitely going to be a little bit of an argument of, well, if I want to use overpower, do I actually want to use rubies to, it gives me less total effective health, but it does provide me more damage for overpower. Yes, we'll do a video about that as well, but it'll be very, very interesting. Barbarians also get a flat 9% more damage reduction from fortification, which makes being fortified even more powerful than them. So it kind of looks like Barbarians are going to be the kings of don't take any damage, which is pretty fun. I'm not going to put this particular spreadsheet out just yet because it also has my gems video spreadsheet as the first page of this, but keep an eye out for that gems video, and I'll put the link to that in the description once that video is out. Hopefully this answered a lot of questions you might have had about nerdy Diablo stuff. I've been going through the data mine basically nonstop, just trying to figure stuff out, try to theory craft and stuff on the stream. So come by if you're into that type of stuff. And I'm really looking forward to just covering more Diablo things, figuring out stuff that's fun and OP, and just enjoying the game overall. Hope you guys have a great day. See you next time.